Welcome to our very short discussion on the addition of signed numbers. You may never have heard of signed numbers, but you actually know what they are. Signed numbers is just a silly way of referring to both positive and negative numbers put together. So when we talk about just positives, we call them positives, right? Just negatives, negatives. But when we talk about them all as a group, we can sometimes call them signed numbers, or integers is a more common phrase for describing numbers that could be either positive or negative. The ordering of numbers, I think we're all familiar with a number line, and we know that the larger numbers go to the right and the smaller numbers go to the left. The symbol that is this little kind of, sideways V means greater than, i.e. A is greater than B, means that A is bigger, right? And then in this direction it's less than, C is less than D. So on a number line we can figure out if things are greater or less. So 4 is to the right of 1, right? 4 is over here, so it's greater. 4 is greater than 1. On the negative side, negative 4 is to the left of negative 1. So in this case, negative 1 is greater, or negative 4 is less than, right? In all technicality, we really don't need both of these symbols because, if something is greater than, if you flip it around, it becomes less than. So we really could get away with just using one of them, but for ease, we have both. And same for these. When you put a line underneath it, it just adds in the equal. So instead of being strictly greater than with the line, it's greater than or equal. Instead of being strictly less than, this becomes less than or equal. We use a little minus sign to show that a number is negative, and sometimes for emphasis you can put a plus symbol in front of something to show that it's positive, although that is almost never used. Usually there's just an absence of any sign whatsoever in front of the symbol, and then that tells us that that thing is positive. Adding up signed numbers can be pictured using the number line, and you can think of a positive arrow as a gain of some quantity, such as gaining money, and a negative arrow is a loss of something, like losing money, and so negative means you owe. So the sum of 4 plus 3, remember there's nothing here, so we assume it's positive, right? So it's like positive 4 plus positive 3, so we start at 0, and we go to the right by 4, we go to the right by 3 more, which gives us a total of 7. A negative number is a line, an arrow going to the left, and that's a loss of some quantity. So here's negative 4 plus negative 3, we start at 0, we go to the left by 4, we go to the left by 3, and it's negative 7. Well, what if we have to add and subtract things that are different signs, right? Well, we can picture adding and subtracting by, colored things. So here's the kind of white circles for positive and the blue circles for negative. So then when we have to do positives and negatives, well, we've got the 4 white circles for the positive number, the 3 blue circles for the negatives. If we stack them, we know that these are opposites, so they cancel each other out. We're left with one white one, so that means we have a plus 1. Just like if we had negative 4 plus 3, we stack them, we subtract, we cancel out pairs, and we're left with one blue one, so the answer is negative 1. So that's a way of kind of visualizing why adding negatives and positives gets us a difference. Absolute value, of course, changes everything into a positive number. And what an absolute value function really does is it tells you the distance of that number from the origin, from 0. So negative 5 is 5 units from 0, so that's why the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. That's technically what the absolute value function does. In practice, what it does is it just makes everything positive. So that's the easiest thing for students to remember, is just whatever's inside the absolute value, the end result ends up being positive. Now, using a calculator, we can use a little key on the calculator. Most calculators have a little minus sign in parentheses, which is totally different than the key that has just the minus sign. The key with just the minus sign means actually do subtraction, right? If you wanted to do 5 minus 3, you would hit the 5 key, you would hit the minus sign, you'd hit the 3 key, you'd hit enter. But if you wanted to add or subtract negative numbers, you have to use the minus sign. So for instance, if you want to do negative 587 plus 368, you would hit that negative symbol, and then 587, which tells the calculator this is negative 587. Then you'd hit plus, then you type in 368, then you hit equals, and you would get your final answer. So really the hardest part about adding, subtracting negative numbers is knowing how to use your technology. And that's all I got for you.